Okay, and then now we move into this week's Unsustainable calls. So we did a little bit of a mailbag as well on Twitter and Discord, so hopefully we tackle some of the people that we got asked about. So the first one for me is going to be John Carlson on the Washington Capitals. So he is doing just a little bit well. I think he's okay.
He's ruining my takes for the beginning of the season, which makes me very sad.
Yeah, he's really ruining your life. I mean, and now we're playing each other this week, and I have Carlson. He already got a power play assist, so it feels even better. But there are a lot of things here that point to me as unsustainable. 17% shooting last season and 28.6% over the last 3 games played. Not sustainable.
17%
last year he was,
for a defenseman, just...
Yeah, he was at 7% last year, for reference.
That's high. So, that is high for a defenseman, too.
Yeah, so that was high, but I mean, look, if he could get 7% last year, then sure, let's give him the benefit of the doubt that that's, where he should be. 17% regardless is way too high. From an IPP standpoint, he is at 90.91 compared to a 45 of last year. So yeah, he's being involved in pretty much every point that ever happens on the ice with him, which is just not going to happen for a defenseman. I mean, I would expect, like, if he came up to, like, let's say 55, sure. Even 60 is like, it's not sustainable whatsoever. Yeah. It's pushing it. It's like unsustainable, but okay, I guess like maybe
it's just within a standard deviation or two.
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe 10, but whatever. Anyways, the one thing I actually see that's really encouraging is his secondary assist rate is really low. So right now, all his assists are coming off of primaries, which is really good. My thought is he's feeding the puck a lot to Alex Ovechkin, which is probably helping out quite a bit. So my take on it is obviously like, don't drop him, don't do anything like that. But I would be personally really wary of anyone coming to you with a trade offer involving John Carlson, because right now you'd be paying the ultimate sell high price on him. So if you're in a league where someone comes to you and says, hey, so you want John Carlson, don't pay what they're asking. Like right now is not a time to go after John Carlson. Unless of course like that owner, like for whatever reason, wants to just sell him, then cool. But for the most part, I would assume that 95% of offers right now that involve John Carlson are going to involve a sell high.
Yep. And I mean, that's sort of the part of Unsustainably High in general. I think 2 of the players I have on my Unsustainably High this week are absolute sell high candidates. And the first one is Cale Makar. I don't think there's a better sell high candidate right now than he is.
Yep, agreed.
He's not shooting like at all. He's got 3 shots in his last 3 games, but somehow wound up with 4 assists. So he's getting things done. And I'm not trying to like take a knock at him or anything, but you need more from a defenseman than just points, unless you're in a points only league, because there are going to be times when they're going to dry up. No defenseman, besides like Brent Burns, is going to be a lock to get 70 plus points or whatever. So Makar is still clipping along at above a point per game pace. He's getting like roughly half of those secondary, more than that actually. He's getting 66% secondary, which means he's 2 like players away from the goal, which is not usually sustainable. And his ice time is under 19 minutes, which is a little lower than you'd like to see for a defenseman. So there's a few worrying things. Yes, he's getting plenty of power play time, and that's where he's going to see the maximum value, and that's what you need from him. If he ever gets off of that top power play, he's in deep trouble immediately. So he's, rostered at 84% already. That's way higher than I expected him to be for redraft leagues, considering there's a lot of like 6 and 8 man leagues out there. So I think he is probably the single best sell high candidate, because he's getting you points, but he's not getting you anything else. And if you can sell on the hype right now, you could come back with something really nice and more sustainable.
Not to mention, it's rare when you have a sell high candidate who also has hype behind him, like Makar, where everyone buys into it, right? Like, for example, Carlson is someone that you go to sell, and people can quickly look at it and say, yeah, he's performing a little bit too good for his own, for what I think. Whereas Makar, you go to him and they're like, oh my God, someone is offering Makar the seal, like the moon is his ceiling, like someone will want to buy. It's very different. There are 2 different reactions that you'll most likely get from an owner. So with Makar, I agree with you. I can't imagine like a better sell high candidate than a guy like Makar this early on. And like you said, points are going to come, but you're not going to get anything else. Okay, moving into my next one, I'm going to go to the real deal in James Neal. Left wing, right wing, all the hype. Like I can't believe he's already at 70+% owned. That's crazy. Insane to me. I mean, I feel like he just went off like a few days ago, and he's already at like 70% plus. I feel like everyone was just waiting. Like people literally sat for a year at their computer with their mouse hovering over the add button on James Neal, and as soon as he scored a goal, they were like, "Yep, Give me
I tried to draft him in a dynasty draft last season, coming into this one, but I stupidly took Albin Grew thinking Neal would come back to me, and that didn't happen.
Albin Grew over James Neal. Regretting it now. I mean, last year you were like, whatever. Now you're regretting it a little bit. So James Neal, look, I'll keep this short. We've gone over him a lot. 37% shooting on the season. He's shooting at 45% on the power play. 0 assists so far. So unless he's getting you goals, right now he's getting you absolutely nothing. And all the numbers kind of show he's going to come down. The good thing is he's actually playing a lot of time on the power play, which is a good sign for him, especially since he's getting dished the puck from one of Klefbom, McDavid, or Draisaitl. That's pretty good. The fade on Nugent Hopkins there. He is top power play, right?
Yep. He's gotten actually. Ryan Hopkins has an assist or 2 on Neal's power play goal so far.
Apologies, Nugent Hopkins, but I still throw all the shade at you. So even though all that power play time on ice is happening, the fact that it's all coming from goals, he has an insanely high power play and even strength shooting percentage is not a good sign for me. I think that's all going to come down. So with Neal, my opinion would be hold, fine, and he's definitely worth holding for now.
Especially this week with them playing all 4 off nights.
Yeah, especially this week. But honestly, he's one of those guys that I just kind of throw out offers with and see if anyone bites. Because if someone does bite, I'd take it.
Actually, I like him in. Oh yeah, for sure if you can, but I don't think anybody's going to be selling or buying just yet. But I do like him in hits leagues, as he does throw the body, and the fact that he's getting good ice time just in general. He actually it was a little low in his last game, something like 14.5 minutes, but he's been seeing 20 minutes per game. If he sticks around those numbers, I mean, it's sad to say, but he is Edmonton's best winger. So you think he's going to get decent position, but
his hit space right now is 148. Last year he was at 60. So yeah he's hitting quite a bit.
It's also like you can just pretty much point straight to the time on ice difference for that, I think.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's just a cumulative thing.
Yep. You know what? I'll stick in Edmonton for my next one. That's Oscar Klefbom at 65%. And I'll go in a little bit more. This kind of touches on Neal as well. Edmonton has played just not good teams so far. Like even this week, they're playing Chicago, Philly, Washington, and I can't remember who the last team is, but it's somebody else lets in a bunch of goals. Detroit, maybe. So all these teams that they've been playing, even up till now, are teams that have not been very strong defensively to start the season. So you're seeing all these players that have any relevance on that team doing well. Cassian is doing pretty well. You've got Neal doing amazingly. You've got Klefbom showing up out of nowhere. I'm not saying I actually do like Klefbom to an extent. If he's going to play well, he's finally going to get power play points. Great. But I'm not holding my breath on anything long term. I like that he's playing 24.5 minutes time on ice. That's great. He's also sitting at 17% shooting, so that's not going to keep happening, but that's only with 1 goal. His shot production's down so far this season, which is not great. But I think the big question mark is whether he's going to be able to keep up his power play point pace. He's already got 4 power play points. That's the big question mark to me. And I feel like this has been a discussion about Klefbom every season about, he's going to do well this season, and then he just doesn't. So I'm sure if he's available, he's probably better than some, drafted 4th or 5th defenseman out there. But I think you don't want to put too many eggs in the Klefbom basket and be dropping somebody I don't know, who's comparable even Klingberg. People are freaking out about Klingberg. I would not. Yeah. Just keep your head above your shoulders here on Klefbom.
How about this one? Because I figured that a lot of so I have 2 questions for you. One, I have an answer for. The other one I don't have a great answer for. So one, I guess, would be I've gotten a lot of questions of Klefbom versus Justin Schultz.
I think I would take Klefbom. I like Schultz. I actually picked Schultz up in a couple of leagues, but mostly because he was still available. Schultz is going to get that top power play production while Malkin's out. So there's that. But, and I don't know. Beyond that, they're pretty similar. And I think Klefbom should be out shooting Schultz historically. So I would expect that Klef is going to have a better opportunity and a longer opportunity and a better peripheral production, except for maybe hits.
Yeah.
But
I had a second question, but I realized that the second question involves a player I'm going to talk about later. So I'm going to skip my second question.
All right. I didn't want to hear it anyway.
You all that? I have no idea. Yep. Oh, well. Okay, so moving on to my third one here, my last one, Sam Lafferty. I think that's how you say it. I think. I was going to make some kind of laughing.
Is he actually trending? Oh, no.
Yes. He was starting to trend up. People are actually picking him up. 14 minutes a game, 4th line, 27% shooting. He is a rookie. And surprisingly, he's actually second in rookie scoring to Victor Olofsson.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So he, 27% shooting, no power play time on ice, 2 assists. Now, here's the thing about Sam Lafferty that everybody needs to know. He got all his points in a 7-2 and 7-4 game.
Yeah.
So, look, there was a ton of goals to go around. They were starting to play their depth. The other team sucked, clearly. So, this is not a guy who's, been scoring consistently. It's like all of a sudden he scored in games where the Pens exploded as a team. So, don't pick him up. He's literally, not rostable right now until you see those minutes go up, until he gets an opportunity at the power play. There's so many injuries on the Pens right now that's why he's there. As soon as they come back, he's going down again. So, don't rush to pick him up.
Yep. All right, my last one is Patrik Laine. I actually rostered him in 2 leagues this season, which will probably be a surprise to everybody considering how much I hated on him last season. But
this people are gonna love this.
Yeah. So he's clipping in over the last week at 100% IPP. Every single point that's been scored with him on the ice, he's been involved in, which is ridiculous. On the season, he's at 91%, which is ridiculous. So that's the biggest things you can point to is how does this guy have 11 points in 7 games, 8 over his last 4. And it's because every single point that's gone in with his skates touching the ice he's been involved in. That's not normal. Typically, a very good forward is going to fall somewhere between 70 and 80%. To be anywhere above that is just crazy talk. And for him to be at 91% and obviously 100% is just insane over the last week. That's where you're going to see the production come down. That said, it's a great look. He's clicking with Wheeler and Scheifele, which thank God, because he needed something to work. He's been complaining about not playing with the best players. I guess his complaint worked, and now he's playing with Wheeler and Scheifele. So there you go. But yeah, I actually do like him a lot this season, but the production he's at right now is just craziness. Okay,
now moving into Unsustainably Low. I'm going to start with one of the most requested players, I think, in Phil Kessel at right wing. And I mean, he has probably been pretty disappointing for everybody. 0 point. I think he has 1 assist. I didn't even talk about assists because I know no one cares about assists for Kessel. I only pay attention to his goals. He has 1. Okay, there you go. So a few things. He's on Unsustainably Low because all his numbers look fine. There's nothing really that stands out to me wrong, except for just he's on in a team that's awful offensively. That's it. That's the problem. His shooting is the same as it was last season. Time on ice is up 5%. Power play time on ice has gone down as a whole, but the percentage on teams' power play has not. So it's really just less power play opportunities for Arizona. Obviously, he's shooting at 0%, but he shot at 12.56 last year. Now, the thing is, if you look at all players on Arizona, they all seem to have lower shooting percentage.
Arizona has 9 power plays on the season over 6 games or something. So
there you go.
Doesn't help.
That's exactly why. Yeah. So I think he'll find his groove. I'd give it time. Nothing stands out as, oh my God, I got to trade or drop him or anything like that. I think I'd hold and let them figure it out. I think the one worrying thing is just the stats from last year and everything may not apply to him, even if they're all in line, simply because Arizona is that much worse on offense than Pittsburgh is.
Yep. My first one's Cam Atkinson. Kind of surprised he's here. Him too. He shot 11 times in the last 2 games. He does have 2 points over 5 games, but he's due for more. Yeah. He should definitely, be doing better than he has been so far, especially over the last week. He's shooting more than he did last season. He's skating more than he did last season. He's got more power play ice time than he did last season. He should be trending up, and it's just not quite happening for him yet. Playing over 20 minutes a game is great. I think he's actually got a really good chance to make a lot of things happen this season.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, his shots, you were talking about his shots being up. His shots on the season are up 32% compared to last year. That's really solid from a rate standpoint. Mm-hmm. And his average time on ice is still solid. His power play time on ice is slightly up. On ice shooting percentage is a little concerning at 8% only. And so that's definitely one thing that I'd kind of pay attention to with him is you want to see people around him shoot a little bit more. And of course, there's no more Panarin, but still, there still should be higher than 8% there being on the top line with how much he's shooting. Okay, moving on to my next one. You took my Cam Atkinson, so I only have one more here, and that's Tomas Hertl, center left wing. People are freaking out. I've seen him dropped all over the place. Lots of people are dropping him, and I'm not entirely sure why, to be honest. Time on ice is up from last year. His power play time on ice is up 44%, which is incredible. More offensive zone starts than last year. His on-ice shooting percentage is only 6.6%, which is really low. His IPP is 40% versus 65% last year, and his shooting is barely down. It's pretty much the same as last year. So I don't see any cause for concern. I don't hate the line he's on. I don't hate his deployment. I don't honestly understand why he's being dropped as much as he is.
All right, I'll go ahead and do my next two. They're both defensemen. The first one's Matt Dumba. This one's actually requested, although he's doing reasonably well with 2 points in 5 games. None over his last 3 games, but he's filling stats elsewhere. Decent shot production, 9 shots in those 3 games. His hits are good, his blocks are good. So everything's there. He's just not quite pulling it together from the points perspective, although 2 and 5 is not terrible. But he's playing 25 minutes of ice time, and he's playing 51% on the power play. Minnesota has a 1A, 1B situation, which blech, but that's kind of the reason he's not getting more than that, but still enough. You'd expect to see something there, and not really much yet. But I especially if you're in a points only league, then maybe it's a little annoying, but still 2 and 5, like we're at the beginning of the season, it's fine. And his peripherals have been great. So if you're anything more than that, he's been fine, been pretty good. My last one for Unsustainably Low is Mark Giordano.
Love this one.
Yeah, so he had 3 points in his first 6 games, which is fine, but 1 point in his last 4. He's shooting 12 shots in his last 4 games, so he's shooting a pretty good amount, and he's playing 25 minutes per game. But the big thing, the thing that's really sticking out to me here is he's at 20% IPP, which means only 1 in every 5 goals that goes in with him on the ice, he's a part of. Now, defensemen are going to be lower than forwards. Typically around 50% is a good defenseman. Giordano should be around 50%. So that means that he's actually missed out on quite a few goals that were scored while he was on the ice, which is not super normal. So I actually think his pace should be higher than it is right now, even though he's getting a point every other game. I don't think he's going to be a 60, 70 point guy like we saw last season, but I mean, he should be doing a little bit better than he is right now, especially with how many goals Calgary's putting in.
Yeah, and especially and you look at a guy, that's another case actually where you look at the whole team and there's some other guys are struggling as well. Like you see Monahan kind of struggling just a little bit. And so I wouldn't pin it on just Giordano. Okay, and now moving on to Sustainably High. So the guys that are going to continue doing the silly stuff that they're doing. My first one is going to be, and this one feels so good, Dougie Hamilton. Yep. Now, look, there's a few things that are unsustainable. There's some good and some bad. I'll give you the big gist is that I wouldn't sell him. I don't think he's a sell high candidate. In my opinion, there's still more to come. And the reason for that is he's getting a lot of time on the power play. And so I can only see a situation getting better here on out in the season. I don't see it getting drastically worse. I think that if you got him late, he's probably really worth where you got him at. And his points totals, I think, are going to go up. So let's get into everything else. So his pace is obviously unsustainable. Like from a points perspective pace, he's not going to get 100 points, obviously. But the indicators are here that he's the real deal. He has 20% higher ice time, 71% more time on the power play, and his IPP is slightly high at 57, but not awfully off. He was at like 47 last year. So he's not terribly off. I mean, that could come down probably a little bit. His secondary assist rate is also pretty solid. The one thing that I don't like a ton is that his hits pace is down and his blocks pace is up. But if he has to sacrifice a bit of hits for the sake of points, I will take that all day.
Yeah, I agree. I wish I had more shares of Hamilton this season. However,
you don't, because I took them all.
I'm pretty happy with my first one to say here. Max Pacioretty, Sustainably High. Left wing, 80% owned. He was one of the most faded players this season, I think. Yep. He's one of the guys that you saw sitting at the top of the draft board from a rankings perspective that nobody wanted to touch because of the fall off from last season. I was actually like sort of trying to move him in my Dynasty League because I was locked up at left wing, but I was happy enough I was hoping that he'd break out this season so I could kind of point the finger at everybody who didn't want him. And that is what's happening so far. There's a lot of things I like about what he's doing so far. And there's obviously a couple that are a little alarming. I'll start with alarming. He's got an 18.3% on-ice shooting percentage, which is just way too high. I think that's probably going to be around 10 to 12%, which would mean of the shots going in when he's on the ice, which ones count, which one are goals as opposed to just shots. 18% is unbelievable. But that's all strength. So that does include power play. So that is actually supposed to be higher. But so the things I like, his time on ice is up from last season and continuing to go up as the season progresses, which is even better. He's got 7 points in his last 4 games, and he has 0 secondary assists so far. So he's only got goals and primary assists, and his shooting percentage is only 15%, which is a little high, but it's not crazy. And the fact that everything else is secondary assists, what this is saying to me is his connection with Stone is real, and it's great for both of them. You can see the same thing on the other side with how well Stone's doing. They are shooting 40% on the power play, which is silliness, but that connection is working out, and it's going to mean good things for both of them. His IPP is only 70% on the season, so he's not going completely crazy. He's not on every goal that's being scored while he's out there. So he looks mostly sustainable except for the on-ice shooting percentage. So yeah, his numbers are going to come down a bit, but he should be pretty good rest of the season if this keeps up.
I got to defend Brandon here in saying that in the offseason, he told me many, many times Pacioretty is being faded too hard. Like multiple times in messages, the guy that Brandon would mention all the time as someone that people aren't paying attention to enough is Pacioretty. So I'll give him credit in that he definitely spotted Pacioretty pretty early, way earlier than even I did. But sticking with the Vegas Golden Knights, I'm going to move on to Paul Stastny, who is now centering that line between Patches and Stone. Also on that second, I guess, quote unquote, second power play with Patches.
I think they're playing
Stone
majority at this point, actually.
Yeah, they are.
They have
like
more ice time.
Yeah, it's like 67% over the last few games. So they definitely are getting majority. So they're technically now the first power play, even though they're listed as second.
Yeah, Patches is sitting at 58% power play time.
Yeah.
So
Stastny is at a 68-point pace at the moment, which is pretty much exactly the same as last year. So there's not really much unsustainable from a points perspective. I'd actually argue that there's probably a little bit of upside there, especially given the line he's on. That's the thing I like the most, is that line has Stastny and Stone, who are two tremendous play drivers, which means they'll also keep a ton of possession. That's another thing that is something you should mention with Patches, is both Stone and Stastny are fantastic, like elite puck movers. And most likely you'll see that line be controlling possession, controlling shot share, all the things that make them kind of advanced stat darlings. That's what they've got. And then you throw on Patches there, who's a good finisher, and more likely than not, you'll see him succeed. And so that's the thing I like the most, is that I like that line. I like the composition of that line and the fact that they can be really offensive. Now, one other thing that I like a ton about Stastny is that this year his power play time on ice so far is up between 50 seconds to a minute, depending on the time frame that you're looking at, which is 40% more than last year. On top of that, his hits are up almost double last year's pace, same as blocks. And of course, similar to Pacioretty, the shooting percentage is high at 30% on the season. He shot at only 12.62% last year. Over the last 7 days, when he got promoted to the second line, he's shooting at 42.8%. So just a little bit high.
He's not a shooter to begin with,
and he's not. So yeah, so that's one thing. The thing is also all his assists are secondary. Last year, 41% of his assists were secondary, so that's something to watch. But it's still early, and he was just moved to that second line.
It
but
tells you
the
a
thing
lot,
is,
though.
again,
it tells you it's doing Stastny, Patches, Stone, goal for the most part.
Yeah. Or Stastny, Stone, Patches.
Yep.
It'll be kind of that order, which is, I think, what's going to happen. I think that Stastny will kind of be in charge of more of the zone entries, and kind of handle the puck into the zone, and then he'll play it off to either one of Pacioretty or Stone. So I think he could see that secondary assist rate go up a little bit from last year, but of course all of his secondary assist rates are too high. But that is something to pay attention to. But I'm high on Stastny. I'm high on that whole second line, to be honest. I'm high on Stastny. I'm high on Pacioretty and Stone.
Honestly.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's way better than the top. Well, that's the thing, too, is they're so good in the offensive zone that, in my opinion, what's going to end up happening is that the top line will end up being kind of even deployment. So they'll kind of get some offensive, some defensive, a little bit of a mix of both. Whereas I could see this Pacioretty, Stastny, and Stone line be just purely offensive.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, they're all so good. I mean, Patches, I don't know. But the rest of them, Stastny and Stone, are so good two-way that I think they'll be a 50-50 like they have been so far, but we'll see. My next one here is Pierre-Luc Dubois, thankfully to everybody else. Center 69% owned. We're seeing his ice time increase. He's getting closer and closer to 20 minutes a game, especially over his last couple. He's finally figured it out with his line. He's got top power play again. everything's trending in the right direction finally. He was a little concerning, and by a little, I mean a lot at the beginning, that he wasn't going to be playing power play. And now he's up at 60% of the ice time there. Everything's going better. We only have 2 games over the last week to look at, but he's shot 6 times in those 2 games, which is good enough. His hit pace is increasing. He's actually at 200 for the season right now as a pace, which is really, really, really good. But I don't think it'll be that high at the end of the season, but he's getting the total package that you expect out of Pierre-Luc Dubois back, which is great to see.
Okay, and my next one here is someone that you love, and we all have a little bit of a nickname for, is Ricky Rax.
Ricky Rax.
Left wing, right wing. Yep, you had to know he was going to show up on here. Point per game over the last 3. His ice time is the same as last year. Shooting is up over 40%, which is really awesome to see. He was already a pretty good shooter last year, and the fact that that's going up is even better. Shockingly, his shooting percentage on the season is only 8.7%. I thought it'd be higher. He finished last year at 9.28%. So that's pretty good. There's a lot of room for growth there. And his power play time on ice is still solid, just about the same as last year. So I don't see, I've seen some Ricky Rax drops and everything. I would definitely hold.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And my last one is actually somebody you like, and that's Jonathan Huberdeau. Left wing, 95%. I'm giving a sustainably high to a point per game player here, and I actually think he could do better. I think he should be, right now he should be above point per game, which is insane. His ice time went up over a minute, so he's above 20 minutes a game so far. He is doing the thing that's crazy is on the season he's at 60% IPP and 50% over his last 4 games. If those were at the numbers you'd expect him to be, which is about 70%, he should have more points than he does right now. Which would put him right back up around that 90-point pace we saw last season. Everything looks very sustainable, not just like a little bit. His on-ice shooting is up 11% on the season, perfectly within reason. His power play production is perfectly within reason. He's sitting at 64% deployment on the power play. His shooting percentages is at 8.33% on the season. That's very sustainable. Everything here is good. If not, we should be expecting more, which is just crazy. So we're saying Jonathan Huberdeau, point per game player right now, underperforming, which is nuts.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this, and I remember when I mentioned that Huberdeau could do that, people were like, oh, that's insane. But then you look at last year and he pretty much did it.
Yeah, 91%. 91 points right there.
So, I don't think it's that insane to think of that of Huberdeau, and he's already crushing it. I am so high on Huberdeau, and I have a feeling that people definitely slept on him. I don't understand how he fell to average 5th round in pretty much every league. Moving on to Sustainably Low, let's talk about some bums. I'm going to start first with the hottest bum of the week, Shayne Gostisbehere, defenseman. Yep.
Oh, boy.
It is early for him to show up here. And if you watched Building Winners, our episode this week, I explained a little bit about why I dropped him, but let me go a little bit more in depth here for those who missed it. Ice time is down from last year already. Believe it or not. I mean, remember how much we complained about his ice time last year, and it's already down on average. Even over the last few days, it's still down. It's not great. Shots are down 53%. Not pretty. Wow. His power play time on ice is down 12%. His bread and butter. Hits and blocks are down. Literally everything is down, and he is not in a position to turn it around. Third pairing and potentially a demotion to second power play in the near future if he doesn't figure it out. It's time to give up. I don't think anyone's grabbing him if you drop him. You probably picked him up super late. There's guys like Justin Schultz on the wire. It's not. I'm not holding anymore. I've given up. And the thing too is that if you look at AV, he's never had a history of having good offensive defensemen on his teams. He tends to stifle them. And I thought that maybe Ghost would be the turn in that, and he would change the cold heart in the Laine Vigneault when it came to offensive defensemen. But alas, that is not the case, and Gostisbehere is dead forever. I'm so glad I used a 7th round pick on him in a dynasty draft.
Nice.
I'm okay. I promise. I think. Crying on the inside, but yeah, it's time to give up on Ghost.
Speaking of guys to give up on, my first one is on this list at the beginning of every single season. And here we are again. Charlie McAvoy. He's
year.
89% owned. Why is he 89% owned? I cannot wrap my head around that. He has 1 point in 6 games, 0 in his last 4. He doesn't shoot, as you should have known by now. And his production's even down from last year. He's shooting less than last year. He's got 1 assist, and it was a secondary. He's got nothing is good. He's playing 28% of the power play. That's terrible. And the second power play is not good to begin with, and that's why he's only playing 28% of the time. He doesn't start offensive zone at all. His hits and blocks are fine, but not 89% fine. There's guys you can find on the wire that'll do good enough hits and blocks. You can get Zaitsev. Zaitsev is better right now and has a better point pace than Charlie McAvoy, which obviously not sustainable, but he's literally a better player right now for if you're looking for hits and blocks.
It almost reminds me of our Kasha discussion.
Oh God, Kasha actually has at least shots.
That is true.
But
that is true.
This is there's nothing promising going on here. The only way he becomes relevant is if Krug gets hurt, which is what always happens. That's when you start looking at McAvoy. And last time that happened, Grzelcyk got top power play. So I don't know.
Not only that, if you remember last year, the reason he got drafted so high was because Krug missed the beginning of the season 2 years in a row. And so McAvoy had good starts to the season. And I feel like it's just this, I don't know, remembrance that, I drafted McAvoy and he did well at the beginning, that everyone drafts him. But towards the end of every season, there's like no reason to hold Charlie McAvoy. Yeah. I don't understand why he's always so highly owned. You know what it is?
He has 6 shots in 6 games. I know what it is, and I don't want to hear you say it.
Yep. People like to touch nice things. Boston is a nice thing. Yep. Yep. It's true. It's the truth.
I don't like it.
It's a fact. Speaking of Boston, actually, I'm going to stick with Boston and talk about Jake Debrusk, left wing, right wing. Ice time is down around 6% from last year. Shooting is up, but he had an unsustainable 17% shooting last year, so I'd expect less goals anyways. Power play time on ice is also just slightly down. The reason I have him on here isn't so much that I think he sucks. It's more so that I think, for example, in like a 10-person league, even a 12-person potentially, depending on who's on the wire, I think there's players out there with a higher ceiling, and they're going to get you more than Jake Debrusk. I think if you're in a deeper 14, 16 team league, then at that point, you want to hold Jake Debrusk. But if you're in an 8, 10, 12, 12 depends on who's out there, but 8 and 10, I'm almost positive that you can find better than Jake Debrusk on the wire. And I get that, again, it's that rule of touchy nice things. People want to be involved, and I know he's on that top power play, but right now he's playing that bumper spot, and it's not really turning into anything.
Yep. My next one is, I think, my highest share guy, which is not good, in Ryan Pulock.
Wow.
70% owned. So
this is big for you.
There's a lot to kind of unpack here. He's still playing over 20 minutes, which is fine, but that is down from last year by, I don't know, not a ton, but a little bit. The things I'm worried about is his lack of shot production, which is down pretty significantly. He's only shot 9 times over his first 6 games. So this is more for if you drafted Pulock with the idea that he was going to get you a bunch of points, because I think that's where a lot of this like fear is coming from. Is that, all right, I'm getting Pulock to get me 180 shots and 150 hits and 150 blocks, which is basically what I was hoping for. And then I think a lot of people thought he was guaranteed to get top power play, which was never going to happen. It's not never going to happen, but he was definitely not guaranteed. In fact, he was less likely to get top power play than about 2 or 3 other people on the team. So the thing is, for him to get top power play, he needs the Islanders power play to kind of go awry, which it always does. And then he probably needs to be paired off with another defenseman, and use him as a more of a kind of like an Ovi situation where he just blasts pucks at the net. At least that's my take on it. I don't know if they're going to play him that way. He's only playing something like, actually I can look right here. He's playing 40% of the team power play, which is actually a little up from last season, but still nothing amazing. He needs something to change a little bit for him to get his point pace above 40, which is what I was hoping to have happen. Although I also drafted him in a position, the places where I was taking him in the draft was with the idea that he was going to get somewhere in the 30, 35 point range, and I was going to fill out with hits and blocks. Knowing that, I'm in a blocks league. If I was not in a blocks league, I would have way, way less shares of Pulock. And I'm assuming a lot of people listening to this right now are not in blocks leagues. And if you're not in a blocks league, you can look to the wire, depending on who's available.
Yeah, I think the thing you said about drafting Pulock for the sake of points is very important. It kind of reminds me of Blake Coleman, right? Where we would say, if you draft him for points, you're going to be disappointed. If you draft him for the peripherals, you're going to be fine. And I think Pulock is kind of in that same position. As when we talked about Pulock, we said there was a big upside for him if he could get those points. But the problem is that those aren't materializing. And I mean, I think a big part of that isn't just him. I think a large part of it is also just the Isles in general being completely anemic offensively.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things you could point at. The Pollock line over there is considered the best defensive line, so they are not getting offensive zone starts. Not going to help. Playing against top competition, not going to help. So there's things that are causing extra problems for him.
Okay, moving on to my last one here, Cody Glass. It seems to be that the days of Cody Glass being rosterable have shattered, unfortunately.
You didn't.
Yep. Yes, I did. I went there, and I didn't even tell you about it. I just surprised you. Just sprung it on you like that. Relegated to the third line, and that's honestly all you got to know. He didn't really do anything in peripherals, and while he's on that second power play, or, quote unquote second power play, he's only playing the bumper spot, and with guys like Stastny, Pacioretty, and Stone shooting so well, he's not going to really get in on many of those points. So right now, like I said, Cody Glass is definitely a drop.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have already dropped him myself, I think, if I remember to. All right, my last one here is Dallas.
Like literally just Dallas? The city of Dallas?
Yeah,
or
the city.
Team?
No, the team.
Okay.
So Dallas, the Dallas Stars right now, I honestly think their best step forward is firing Jim Montgomery. I'm kind of surprised something didn't happen last season when the whole dust up between Montgomery and Seguin and Ben happened. I think now's the time. I don't know when they're going to do it, but I would have Jim Montgomery at the top of my list of first head coaches fired.
I feel like Hines in New Jersey also has to be up there.
There's a few that are floating around, but I would, if I was Dallas, I'd be thinking about it pretty hard. They've blended the lines constantly. I don't know how they're supposed to be building any sort of chemistry when I don't think I've seen the same lines 2 games in a row yet. And I actually think they're being changed in game as well. I don't know how anybody's supposed to be able to figure anything out with anybody else. So I don't know, like now we're seeing Hintz is the top center and Sagan's down with whoever, and Pavelski has been on every single line in the game, and Radulov has been wherever, and Ben has been on the third and fourth line. I don't know what's going on anymore, but that silliness it's certainly not going to help any fantasy. It's not going to help their team either. So I don't know what the way forward is other than trying something completely different, which I think is the right approach. But we'll see if they take it, and if they do, when that happens. Until then, I don't know what to expect from Dallas just as a whole.
Is Montgomery the new Willie D?
Hey, no. Willie D will stand alone in his what he did. Good Lord.
Willie knew what he was doing.
It was like he was sent as like a devil to ruin all of the LA Kings fans' hopes and waste a year off the lives of everybody that was fans and players of that team.
Willie D is, Willie D actually sacrificed himself and got fired and reincarnated as the Taylor Swift banner. And now they covered it up and they're doing okay. So that Taylor Swift banner is Willie D. Well, anyways, there you go. That's the Unsustainable episode. I'm glad your glass hasn't shattered yet on your desk. I'm glad you like that one.
It's a plastic, thankfully.
Anyways, thank you for listening. We will see you for Friday's episode. Thanks for listening.
Yep, thanks for listening.